Hey everyone, welcome to Trail Sage, and this week we're talking about the Vsett 9 Plus electric scooter. Now, you might be thinking, hold up Sage, what's a scooter have to do with mountain biking and trail running? Well, not only have I been using this to commute to and from work, but I've also been using it to get to the trail as well. I even think that this could be useful in some mountain bike shuttling situations. Now, if this stupid grin on my face wasn't evidence enough, I absolutely love this thing. I purchased it about 5 months ago from Rev Rides, and so far, I have about 250 miles on it. Now, there's a lot to unpack here, so before we jump into the details, please know that I've included chapter markers down below so you can jump to whatever section you're interested in. Okay, so here are the specs. The Vsett 9 Plus is a dual suspension scooter, and with two 650 watt motors in each wheel, it can reach speeds up to 35 miles an hour. The pneumatic road tires measure 8.5 inches in diameter and 3 inches wide. To stop those wheels, the Vsett is equipped with two mechanical disc brakes with 120mm rotors on the front and back. Both motors can restore power back to the battery using regenerative braking. And to set the amount of brake regen, you can toggle through the menu options on the display. And since we're talking about the display, the Vsett comes with a digital color display that shows your gear level, speed, odometer, and battery life. When in use, it'll also let you know if your cruise control is active and if your headlights are on. To the right of the display, you'll see an on and off button, a plus and minus button which will allow you to select the gear, and a finger throttle. Directly below the display, you have a voltage meter and an NFC card reader. To start the scooter, simply hold down the power button, and when prompted, place your key card over the reader and the display comes alive. Choose the gear you want to ride in and you're ready to go. But I do want to clarify something here. What they're referring to when they say gears is actually more like a limiter or governor and has nothing to do with acceleration. For example, in single motor mode, Gear 1 sets the limit to about 14 miles an hour, and Gear 3 will take you all the way up to 27. In dual motor mode, add 5 miles per hour to each gear, giving you a top speed of 35 miles per hour. On the other side of the handlebars, there's two more buttons, one for your horn, and the other's a toggle to switch between single and dual motor mode. The mileage will depend on which option you choose, but I got mine with a 48-volt 15.6 amp hour battery, which Vsett claims to give you about 36 to 40 miles of range on one motor and 18 to 30 miles when using both. Now, I haven't done any range tests to see if these numbers were accurate, but I commute about 10 to 12 miles in dual motor mode every day and I haven't had any issues. So how about the actual dimensions of the scooter? Overall, the scooter is 47 inches long and 49 inches tall. But with the handlebars folded down, it's only 20 inches. Ground clearance was measured at 6 inches, and the overall weight came in at 57 pounds. Regarding bar height when standing on top of the deck, the handlebars are 40 inches high and measure 25.5 inches in width. There is a slight rise and back sweep to them, but I couldn't find any of those numbers online. Moving on to the deck. Starting at the dual charge ports, the deck measured 21 inches in length and 7 inches in usable width. There's also a back plate that rises above the rear wheel that adds an additional 5.5 inches to the overall length. On the sides, you'll notice two lights. This is one of many safety features you'll find on the Vsett. These indicators light up when braking and turning and work regardless of whether the headlights are on. To access the turn signals, push on the integrated buttons located on your grips. Once pressed, they'll blink for about 20 seconds in both the back and front. The headlight is located on top of the front fender and can be turned on using the plus button on your controller. But the most important safety feature is the folding mechanism. Vsett uses a clamping system that integrates a set screw on the handle and a spring-loaded pin to ensure that it won't accidentally fold on you while riding. Finally, included in the packaging from Vsett was a charger, a toolkit, 2 spare key cards, and some additional reflectors. And since Rev Rides checks each scooter before it leaves the shop, they threw in a nice handlebar bag, which I thought was a nice touch. Okay, that was a lot to cover, and if I missed anything or if you have any additional questions, leave them in the comments below and I'll do my best to answer them. And if you're enjoying this video so far, go ahead and hit that like button. So let's move on to the things that I love about the Vsett 9 Plus. The overall construction of this scooter is absolutely solid. The dual suspension arms don't have any side-to-side play, and the folding mechanism feels like one continuous piece of metal. And trust me, when you're going 35 miles an hour on tiny wheels, you don't want to feel like things are falling apart. When running both motors, I have no problem keeping up with local traffic, and the 3-inch wide tires grip really well when I'm braking and going around turns. The suspension soaks up little bumps with ease and gives us a really nice plush ride feel. And yeah, you can adjust the amount of suspension by tightening and loosening these bolts. The terrain around me is quite hilly and this scooter has no problem climbing, especially if I'm in dual motor mode. Of course, a lot of this has to do with riding weight and battery life, but Vsett claims that this will climb up to a 25% gradient, which is just insane. And while I try not to ride this thing in the rain, the fenders do an excellent job of keeping any moisture and debris from flying up and hitting you. I also appreciate where Vsett placed the charge ports. At first I thought this might be an issue with my foot hitting it, but the reality is nobody would ride with their feet that close to the front. In fact, unlike other scooters that have their charge ports on the sides, these are protected better and you don't have to worry about damaging them if you scrape up against a curb. Another concern that I had was the material that they used on top of the deck. It's like this plastic-like substance with only the logo in the center being rubber. I thought I'd be slipping around, but actually it has a lot of grip. I suppose I could stick some grip tape on there if I needed to, but I haven't had any issues. And the 7-inch wide deck gives me plenty of room to place my foot in various positions. As someone who has experience riding a motorcycle in my college days and currently rides a mountain bike and road bike several times a week, I wanted a scooter that could grow with my comfort level and abilities. At the beginning, I stayed in gear 1 and 2 in single motor mode, but by week 2, I was comfortably getting up to top speed. And this thing is powerful. I have my torque settings set to low, but in dual motor mode, this thing wants to get up and go, which is handy in situations where you need to cross traffic or keep up with the cars in front. But as much as I love this scooter, and I do, there are several flaws that you should be aware of. And since we're just talking about power, let's talk about how that power is being delivered. The throttle has a very on and off feel, meaning the speed is hard to modulate. It's less noticeable in single motor mode, but in dual motor, you can really feel it. I had a hard time visually trying to capture that feeling on camera, so I'll do my best to explain it. Rather than delivering the power evenly as you pull the throttle, it feels more like spurts of power, and I don't mean off the line, I mean it's jerky while you're riding. This makes it really hard to navigate tight turns and obstacles at slow speed, and while single motor mode does help, and frankly I've gotten better at managing it, it still annoys me that the power can't be delivered in a more linear way. The second major issue is the display. One, it's connected to the throttle, so depending on where you like the lever, it could put the display out of view. And two, even if you have it set to a good position, it's hard to read in daylight. And I mean it's virtually useless during some parts of the day depending on where the sun is. Now it's not a deal killer for me because I don't stare at my display while I ride. However, for things like cruise control and battery life, it gets pretty annoying. And speaking of battery life, the battery level indicator isn't what you think. It fluctuates up and down as you ride, which gave me a lot of range anxiety at first. The reality is, if you want to know your actual battery life, you need to use that indicator in conjunction with the voltage meter, something that Vsett should have made clear in their instructions. Basically, if your voltage reads 52 or higher, then your battery's at 100%. At 47, then your battery's at 50%, and if your voltage gets down to 42, that means your battery's down to 20% and you'll need to charge. The last major issue won't seem like a big deal to you now, but the decision to use hex bolts on the brake rotors is absolutely baffling. Now you might be like, Sage, who cares about bolts? Well, just wait till you get a flat and you have to remove them. I stripped 3 of them to the point where I had to take it to my local bike shop. For their part, they had to use a special tool, and even then it wasn't easy. After watching them struggle, I went ahead and replaced all the bolts front and rear to Torx, which is something that should have been done straight from the factory. So those are all my major issues, but there are a few more minor issues that I want you to be aware of, starting with the handlebars. It's pretty cool that Vsett included these folding handlebars, but the connector does tend to rattle loose over time, so you want to make sure that they're good and tight before every other ride. And sticking with the handlebars, I love that they included turn signals, but I found them hard to locate with your thumb. This means I have to sometimes take my eyes off the road to actually use them, which is dangerous. Something that wasn't an issue for me, but could be for others, is the height of the bars. At 40 inches, this was just at the limit for me at a height of 5'7", so if you're shorter than that, you may have trouble operating the controls and getting into a comfortable position. I also want to point out that many claim that this will be a good commuter scooter, but I'm not sure I agree with that. At almost 60 pounds and practically 4 feet long, it's hard to carry and maneuver. Personally, I would have loved to have seen a welded handle on the down tube. This would have made it easier to pick up and also give the user something to pass a lock through to discourage thieves. Finally, this isn't a negative per se, but the keycard only activates the motors. When the scooter is off, the wheels still spin freely, meaning anyone can still walk away with your scooter. So rather than relying on the key card alone, I would definitely still lock it up if you plan on leaving it somewhere. Now I realize that may have seemed like a lot of negatives, but if you're paying good money for a high-end scooter, I feel like you should be aware of what you're getting. And speaking of money, I purchased my Vsett from Rev Rides for a little over $1,400, but I just noticed that they're offering the same 15 amp hour version for $1,300, which is an awesome deal. I also want to note that these guys were super helpful. I had a lot of questions beforehand and they handled all my concerns professionally with kindness. I know there are a lot of other dealers that sell Vsett scooters, but for my money, I wouldn't go anywhere else. I'll leave a link to their shop in the description below. So let's talk about some possible upgrades. Aside replacing all the hex bolts on the brake rotors, which I highly recommend doing by the way, for this review I kept the scooter completely stock, but there are some things that I have or will upgrade in the future. One, Vsett was kind enough to include a multi-tool with the scooter, but the quality is poor and I would replace this immediately with a more substantial multi-tool. They also included an extension hose to reach the valves, but it is absolute garbage. The minute that you undo the pump, the air just comes flying out. Instead, I would use something like these valve extenders by Slime. They're small, making them easy to throw in your pack, and they don't let any air out when you attach or remove them. Another thing that I would add is a secondary headlight. While the fender-mounted light is a nice touch, it's not bright enough to ride at night. One of the things that I purchased immediately was this Magic Shine 900. It produces 1200 lumens of brightness, which is just about what you need if you plan on doing a lot of riding in the dark. And while I love that they included folding bars, I don't actually need this functionality and I would rather use solid bars, which would save some weight and give me some more confidence at those higher speeds. And to help stop me at those higher speeds, I'm thinking about switching over to hydraulic brakes. The mechanical brakes are nice, however, they do require some effort to pull back, and I'm constantly adjusting the wire tension as the pads wear. Hydraulic brakes are efficient, give you more stopping power, and also require less maintenance once they're set up. I'm also toying with the idea of adding a steering damper to the column. Having tiny tires and traveling 35 miles per hour can sometimes give you an uneasy feeling if the roads aren't smooth or if there's a little breeze. I'd be curious to see if the damper could alleviate some of those annoying speed wobbles. And finally, while I love the safety redundancies on the folding latch system, the one located on the latch itself is overkill. Once you clamp it into place, it doesn't want to come apart. I'll probably replace this screw using a strap instead. This will make folding it down much easier while still providing a degree of safety. So in conclusion, I realize that may have sounded like a lot of negatives and upgrades, but I absolutely love this thing and I would definitely buy it again. Not only have I saved on gas, but with traffic, the bike lanes are often faster, saving me time as well. And while the speed modulation and portability issues don't make this ideal for city commuters, for me being in the suburbs, this has been perfect. With a top speed of 35 miles per hour, I can confidently keep up with traffic. The dual motors give this a lot of pep and the full suspension makes this a blast to pop curbs and dip into corners. So if you're considering a scooter, I would highly recommend the Vsett 9 Plus. With the ability to switch between single and dual motor and several gear options, it's a product that can grow with you and you won't have to worry about outgrowing it. And if battery life is a concern, you can always opt for the 21 amp hour version, which will extend your range by another 10 miles. If you're interested in checking out some bonus ride footage, I made some available to my members. So for just $2, consider joining and enjoy some extra perks. Well, that does it for this video. If you have any feedback or questions, leave them in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video, hit that like button. And if you want to see more content like this, feel free to subscribe. Thanks for watching. Excuse me. Hey everyone, welcome to Trail Sage. Not only have I been using this thing to compute to stop those wheels, Vsett restore some power back to the battery using regenerative braking. Can restore power back to the battery. Both motors can restore power. Both motors can restore powder. It's like this plastic-like sublet. I think the generator just kicked on. Well, there's 15 minutes of my life I won't get back. I've got the power. It's getting kind of hectic. It is getting kind of hectic. One, it's connected to the. I threw up two. And I mean it's complete. I mean it's And while the speed modulation, speed modulation, and while the speed modulate, plug it into the EV station. Ah, my keys got stuck. I got too much crap on this. Heyo, heyo. What do you think?
Unless you want like giant poster board in your shop.
Hi, Anthony is Sage's face.
I'm struggling. If you could do a grunt, that would be great.
Boogies?
No, you look good. Hi, I'm compensating for self-esteem.
Right? Oh, I thought you were going somewhere else with that. Ready?